What do we got today?
Oh, yeah. Well, as it turns out, there are 89 chapters in the Christian Gospels. Of them, only four chapters in two books contain an infancy narrative. Two of them are in Matthew, two of them are in Luke. But Matthew is unique in that Matthew, unlike Luke, not only asserts that Jesus was miraculously conceived, uh, but he goes on to do something that Luke does not, and that is he says that we could see from the book of Isaiah, and it's in verse 21, Matthew 1:21 through 23, where he says that there was a prophecy that the Messiah is to be born of a virgin. And when we go back to the original passage, this is one of 11 fulfillment citations. So what you should do, and I hope what you'll get from this missionary video that we're going to examine, is that whatever they say, just look it up. Whatever they tell you, this is going to come up. That's going to be the theme. Whenever, like I say, when I'm on air, I always say, please look it up for yourself. I always say, even if you like me, just dispense with whatever affection you feel for me and look it up for yourself. Well, the reason I do that is because I want you to go back to the primary sources. And what we're going to encounter is just a very well done film. I mean, it looks good and sounds good, but the film is just one lie after another lie, and they're brazen. The person's not even embarrassed to say, to engage in this kind of theological sophistry. Take a look.
Yep, here we go.
Wasn't the only word the Jews changed. There is a second one, and it is even more significant. The word Alma was changed to Betula. Isaiah 7 verse 14 contains one of the most famous prophecies about the Jesus. Behold, the virgin shall conceive and bear a son, and shall call his name Emmanuel. Modern Jewish scholars argue that Alma, which is the original word used in the verse above, doesn't mean virgin, that it just means young woman. But here's the problem. The Dead Sea Scrolls, which contain ancient Jewish writings from before Jesus, use Alma in contexts that imply virginity. But that wasn't the only word the Jews changed.
There we go.
Let that actually play. If you
Even more significant.
You
The word Alma was changed to Betula. Isaiah 7 verse
let's
14.
just stop. So right there.
Okay.
It's just mind-blowing what you just heard.
Right.
The Jews, this luminary says, change for Alma to Betula. It doesn't even make sense. Do you see what's happening? This video is arguing the Jews changed Alma to Betula. That's insane. So the word Alma means a young woman. Young woman conveys two things, her youth and her gender. It doesn't convey her sexual history. In fact, in the ancient world, young women got married, and they got married younger then than they do now. So what's happened is that the church altered the text in order to make it appear Christological. This fellow in the video actually said that in the Dead Sea Scrolls, when I fell upon this, I just sat there going, wow. So he said that the Dead Sea Scrolls implies virginity in Isaiah 7:14. Like where? Like what? Like people are literally just making this up. There's not even, it's not like it's a misread. So we have the book of Isaiah in the Dead Sea Scrolls. In fact, we have quite a number of copies of Isaiah, different sections. The Essene group that lived in Qumran. Qumran was a community, probably quite a monastic community, destroyed in 68, but their library survives. We have the great Isaiah scroll on display in the Israel Museum. We have the whole book of Isaiah. So it's right there. Anybody can go there and just look at it. It says the exact same thing. Hine ha'alma, behold, the young woman is pregnant. So when someone, this is going to come a lot. Like you see me do shows where I was on with Jesse Lee Peterson. What a nice fellow, with everything, right? But what did I do? What did I do when I was on with him, right? I said, show me your source, okay? I want to train you to do this. Just when someone makes an assertion, like a young woman in the ancient world was expected to be a virgin, you're going to get this from Jews for Jesus just ad nauseum. What is your source for this? Where does it say that? Where do you get that from? But they just say it, and why does this work? It works because ordinary people generally, unless they're sociopaths or people typically don't lie or don't want to lie, so we just assume that other people are somehow operating with the same guiding principles that we do, and someone wouldn't just make up something out of whole cloth. I mean, maybe a person might embellish a little bit, I don't know, but just make it up. The Dead Sea Scrolls implies, really? What exactly does the Dead Sea Scrolls imply? What? And ask, show me your source, okay? I mean, King David is called an Elam. Was he also a virgin in 1 Samuel chapter 17, verse 56? Elam is the masculine version. Elam, male, Alma, female. So was King David when he says, Hiksati me alumav, you have shortened the days of my youth. Why don't they translate that? You shortened the days of my virginity. This is so, all right, calm down, singer. This is really it's very stupid. But it just sounds convincing. Why? Because, I said it. Be very careful because when you engage with missionaries, now, are they all psychopath liars? No. What they do is they're reading books, missionary books. You can guess who writes these books. So they go online to missionary websites and they just read this and then regurgitate it. They're not looking it up. And that's why I care about them. Why do I care? Because I know that 95% of the people you're interacting with are not bad faith actors. They've just been lied to, and they have no access to the original Hebrew, so they're repeating those. So just please always ask somebody, show me your source. Because, if I told you that when I was a kid I had a pet turtle, you don't need a source and you don't need a Polaroid. Why? Because it's not a fantastic claim. It's true, but kids have pets, right? But fantastic claims require fantastic evidence. If you want to say that Isaiah, who lived some 2,700 years ago, predicted the birth of the Messiah, a supernatural conception, 700 years later, that is a fantastic claim. It doesn't mean it's not true. Incidentally, just one other catch, never say to a missionary that it's preposterous that a virgin could conceive. That's a very bad argument because as far as miracles go, God could have a virgin conceive. In fact, we observe parthenogenesis, not in humans, but we see it in other animals. So don't argue that. That's a very bad argument. I see that often. Don't do that. So just always ask when it's a fantastic claim, please show me your source. And when you look it up, it always comes up flat. And we could talk about this forever. I'm not going to. Let's go to part 2.
Okay, here we go.
Also, the Septuagint, a Greek translation made by Jews 200 years before Jesus, translates Alma as Parthenos, which means virgin in Greek. So if Jews themselves translated Alma as virgin before Christianity even existed, why did later Jewish scholars change their stance? Because once Christianity emerged, Jewish leaders needed to deny the virgin birth. We even see this debate happening in early Jewish writings. One of the most famous Jewish commentators, Rabbi Rashi of the 11th century, was one of the first to argue that Isaiah 7 verse 14 wasn't about a virgin birth. But notice the timing. This argument only started showing up centuries after Christianity had spread. If this wasn't about Jesus, why did Jews before Jesus believe Alma meant virgin, but Jews after Jesus started denying it? And here's the final nail in the coffin. Some say that Betula is the actual Hebrew word for virgin, but that's not entirely true. Betula can mean virgin, but it's also used for unmarried women in general, whether they are virgins or not. Alma, however, always refers to a young, unmarried woman, and in ancient Jewish culture, that always meant virginity. So why did later Jewish scholars suddenly start saying it doesn't mean virgin? Because the prophecy was too clear. If Isaiah 7 verse 14 was allowed to stand as it was originally understood, it would prove that Jesus was the Messiah.
There's a lot in that one.
The nonsense here is hard to know where to begin. That's always the difficulty when doing the show. You're always going to hear this. So it's very important that when I present this information, you hear it from them. Septuagint comes up immediately. The argument's always going to go that the Septuagint, somewhere about 250 BCE, rendered Isaiah 7:14 as a virgin. So you see rabbis, this is what's being conveyed. Rabbis, let's just say a quarter of a millennium, meaning 250 years before the advent of Christianity, meaning they didn't have an axe to grind, they have a dog in it. They translated Isaiah 7:14 as virgin, Greek parthenos. So this proves to you that the word Alma here doesn't just mean a young woman, but it means a young woman that had never slept with anyone. So this is complete nonsense. The original Septuagint, you just got to get this through your head. The original Septuagint, which is really called in scholarly circles, the Proto-Septuagint. That means the original Septuagint that was translated by some 70 or 72 learned rabbis. We have a lot of sources for that. There was a Septuagint. We have a letter Aristides, we have the Talmud, we have Josephus. It was, but it was only of the 5 books of Moses. So Isaiah is not part of the Pentateuch. It's not part of the Torah. So therefore, they didn't translate it. So you understand how the scam works? And I'm sure if you're hearing this, you're going, but that was so believable, the way he said it. They're all going to do this, but it's all nonsense. Moreover, the word parthenos, which is used in the Septuagint, doesn't necessarily mean a virgin. It can mean a virgin, but it also can mean someone who's not a virgin. See, as an example, Genesis chapter 34, when referring to Dinah, who was raped, meaning she wasn't a virgin. So the assertion is tedious. Now, you're going to get this, and you need to be prepared for it. It is true that after the original Septuagint, which was created for the Alexandrian Library by at least 70 translators, subsequently many people started translating TaNaCh into the Greek language. We even have G texts, meaning Greek fragments, in the Dead Sea Scrolls. What happens is, now Isaiah 7:14 is not among the Greek fragments of the Dead Sea Scrolls, so don't even bother. But as the Greek language was something like, in the ancient world, this part of the ancient world, was somewhat the lingua de franca. It's not quite as like English is today, where you can really speak English anywhere and get by, but it was the language, thanks to Alexander the Great. So translating the Hebrew Bible, TaNaCh, into the Greek language became a cottage industry, and it did, so listen very carefully. So there were Greek translations of the Hebrew Bible after the Septuagint was created, all the way going into the 3rd century time of Origen, who is a church doctor. He's very highly esteemed. In fact, I'll tell you this, in my view, he was by far the brightest of all the he's technically wouldn't be called a church father because some of his views were heretical, but you can call him a theologian of the church. It really was a genius. He wrote at least 1,000 books during his lifetime. Jerome says 2,000. He was really quite the prodigy. He was a bright guy. Moreover, and more germane, he was completely fluent in Hebrew. Only he and Jerome were the only two, we'll call them church fathers, who were completely fluent in both Greek and Hebrew. He's going to put together a hexapla, whatever that means, but the key point, he is going to edit the final version of a Greek translation of the Hebrew Bible. And he is going to ensure that the Greek, they call the Septuagint, comports with all the mistranslations that you find in the New Testament. Now, let me be very clear. If you go to university, any university, you go to a liberal university, you'll be told by your professor, who's not even a fundamentalist Christian, he may not even be a Christian. They just say it. They just repeat it. You'll be told by your high school teacher that the New Testament authors were using the Septuagint. They say this, and there is not a sliver of evidence for this. You say, but there is evidence because we find, you go on Amazon, you open up a Septuagint, and it comports to the New Testament. But who's copying which? Do you understand this? This is so insane. Here is the key point. 2 points. Number one, subsequent to the original, what's called Proto-Septuagint, the 5 books of Moses, there's a cottage industry of translators who are rendering the TaNaCh into the Greek language. We know that. It was going on BCE, CE, but what was occurring is everyone would call the Greek translation the Septuagint. Follow? Like there are hundreds. I don't even know how many. Let's say there are 300 English translations of the Bible today. I made that number up. I don't know exactly. It can't be too far up. But at least when people had a new translation, they actually gave it a new name, like a New International Version, the Bishop's Bible, the King James Bible, the American Standard, Revised Standard. They gave it different names. But everyone just called all these translations Septuagints. So you got that? So they're all called Septuagints. Incidentally, read the preface to the King James Version, the men who are the translators who began their effort to render the King James into the English language. They began in 1604, completed in 1611. 90% of it is really the Tyndale Bible that was written nearly a century earlier, but it's not germane. In their preface, they write about this problem. Therefore, they say they are rendering the Hebrew. They're not rendering the Septuagint because there's so many Septuagints. Now, they're not being truthful, meaning in the King James Version, it does say virgin, so that's a corruption. And these guys knew it. These guys were real scholars, Oxford, Cambridge scholars. So this is the way you need to frame it. So I'm just teaching you how to do this. When you speak to someone in Chosen People Ministries, in One for Israel, in Jews for Jesus, or you speak to some pastor who says the Septuagint says Parthenos, that as BCE, before the Christian era, or before the common era, whatever you want to call it, or the BCE really means before the common era. Regardless, ask your interlocutor very gently, very thoughtfully, one simple question. Can you provide for me a single manuscript of Isaiah 7:14 that predates Christianity in the Greek language where the word Parthenos is used? Just show me one. You got it? So that's all you need to do. So people ask me, how do you do it? Just say, please show me one example of a text that predates Christianity, that is a Greek translation or a putative translation of TaNaCh, where in Isaiah 7:14, it's rendered as Parthenos. They won't be able to because it doesn't exist. It does not exist. So, okay, you got it? I'm not training you, but you have to know how to ask your questions in a way that gets to the point. Okay, that's stage one. There's so much nonsense that's spilled out of this video. Let's go to the next nonsense. And that is that the claim is that Rashi, who was a medieval commentator on TaNaCh and all the Talmud, he was the giant. Rashi was born in 1040, he died in 1104, so it's really in the medieval period. So the argument of this missionary is that Rashi invented this whole notion that Isaiah 7:14 is talking about a young woman and not a virgin. It's so stupid. It's not even true. I mean, it's not even true if you look at Rashi's commentary. It's just made up out of whole cloth. And the reason why people like you may allow these statements to go unquestioned is that you can't imagine that someone would just lie. And as it turns out, of course, this is a fatuous claim. It's not torturous. It's completely made up. In fact, we have Christian sources on this. We have Christian sources that expose this video as a complete scam. It's just a complete smoke and mirrors. So what you saw now is like a prop in a magic show. You can go to Justin's dialogue with Trifo. It survives. It's online. It's free. It's free online. The copyright's over. Justin was mid-2nd century church father. Mid-2nd century. That means Justin is writing less than a century after the book of Matthew. Matthew is written, let's say, 85. Justin is 150. Got it? So you just don't trust me. Go to Justin, his dialogue with Trifo. It's available. So what Justin did was he had a kind of a debate with this Jew, whoever that Jew is, doesn't matter. And Justin records his best recollection of the debate and how he won. Do we trust him? Doesn't matter. That's not germane. But one part is very important. That is, go to chapter 43. Again, this is not from my books. It's not from Jewish sources. This is from Christian sources. So this would be, if you went online, you would look for the Ante-Nicene Church Fathers. Okay, it was translated into English a century ago, more than a century ago. I happen to own it, but I had to leave it behind in the United States because who's going to schlep all those books, and it's available online free. The key is, if you go to chapter 43 of Justin's dialogue with Trifo, so now we're looking at a Christian source that does not like Rabbi Singer. They don't like me. Justin did not like Jews. He wasn't a fan. He says that was the Jewish response, that Isaiah 7:14 doesn't say a virgin, but says a young woman. Please, again, don't trust me. Even I know some of you write very nice things. You write nice emails to me. You write nice comments on YouTube. Thank you. Don't trust me. Please look it up for yourself. That means this missionary, they all do this. I've been showing this video. They all engage in this chicanery. They all engage in this promiscuous sophistry. It's all a game of hide the ball. That's all it is. It's simply a dumb prop. What does a prop mean? So a magician is using misdirection in order to get you to believe that the laws of thermodynamics have been suspended for the purpose of your entertainment. So when a magician cuts a lady in half, why does he have to put her in a box? Why don't you just cut her in half without the box? Why does he have to put a cloth over the ball before it can fly? Why can't it fly without it? Because it's a prop. That's all they're doing. They have to cover it up because then you got to figure out what to trigger. That's what's going on. This is all a scam. The only difference is that most magicians, I believe, would admit that they're not violating the laws of thermodynamics, but this is an illusion. And it's fun. There's an unwritten contract when you go to a magic show that we allow the entertainer to fool us, and we enjoy a lot of skill goes into it. Not a lot of skill goes into this. This guy, because he's saying things that are really interesting, he's showing that this is a complete scam. It means he is He's doing what Candace Owens does, just promoting conspiracies about Jews, when it's the exact reverse. Whenever someone makes up these conspiracy stories, really it's always the opposite. We're not doing anything. We didn't kill Charlie Kirk. If Charlie Kirk wasn't in Utah, but if he was in Israel, he wouldn't have been shot. He'd be still alive rather than a funeral right now. Everything is just the opposite. So just remember, when they say it, ask, show me sources. I just showed you a source. What source? Medieval? No. I showed you a source from the ancient world. That's from Justin, that he admits that's what Jews say. I rest my case. Section 3.
All right, here we go.
Most Jewish people today have no idea that these changes even happened. They're told that Christians twisted the Old Testament, that we read Jesus into passages where he doesn't belong. But the reality is that their own scholars were the ones who rewrote the meaning of these words long after Jesus had come. Just look at modern Jewish translations like the JPS TaNaCh. When it translates Isaiah 7 verse 14, it doesn't say virgin, it just says young woman. Not because the Hebrew demanded it, but because the messianic meaning had to be erased. This isn't just a language issue. This is about truth and what happens when people try to suppress it. Most Jewish people...
There you go.
So, you heard this brilliant argument. So, the JPS, the Jewish Publication Society, it's an okay Bible. I don't really recommend it. I would much more recommend our scroll, Judaica Press is excellent, but let's not go off topic. So as it turns out, again, another complete lie. And as it turns out, there are Christian translations of what Christians regard as the Bible that actually translate Isaiah 7:14 correctly. For example, the Revised Standard Version. They translated the Hebrew Bible in 1952, right? Well, what does it say in the Revised Standard Version? That's Christian, and it's used in many, many churches. Or the New Revised Standard Version that was updated. What does it say? It says a young woman, or it might say the young woman, depending on the New English Bible. It's a Christian translation. New English Bible, Oxford edition. It says young woman. So it not only is not true that Jewish Bibles mistranslated, meaning Jewish. Now, just so you know, the original JPS, which I think was in 1917, it was translated by scholars who were Jewish, but not really. Most of them were not really Orthodox, so it's really not what I would recommend. But it's not germane here. The question is why there honest Christian translators that render Isaiah 7:40. So the Jews are liars and we're scheming and we make up stuff and we're the devil. Great. But why do Christian Bibles translate Isaiah 7:14 as behold, a young woman or the young woman is with a child? Why do they do that? And believe me, they got into a lot of trouble. When the RSV came out, it came out, I don't know, 70 years ago, whatever, 65 years ago, more than that. When it came out after World War II, believe me, the fundies went crazy. They went nuts. Why? Because they were saying the emperor has no clothes. The Jews are right. Incidentally, if you went to a Revised Standard Version Oxford annotation, you'd see in the commentary, they'll say that the servant is Israel, not Jesus. I'm not kidding. So there are quite a number of Christian Bibles in the English translation that render Isaiah 7:14 as young woman, the word Alma as young woman, and not virgin. So why do you blame it on the Jews? Where did this come from? We're just rendering it accurately. Rashi invented it. How stupid. Incidentally, it says we have an example of the word Alma used in the Hebrew Bible, Proverbs 30, verse 19 and 20, where it says, Kain derech gever b'alma, where it says, the way of a serpent on a rock, the way of a ship in the sea. they leave no trace, as an eagle that flies to the sky. The key is that when a ship passes through the sea, after the wake behind it settles, you can't tell that a ship ever passed through there. A snake on a rock, it leaves no trace. On sand, it leaves a trail. An eagle in the sky, after it flies by, it shows no evidence that a bird had ever flown there. The Cain Derech Gev B'Yam, remember, the book of Proverbs really is Mishlei. That's the real name. What does the word Mishlei mean? It means an example, a mashal. It means an example. So look at these three. This is the way it is with an alma who is an adulterous woman with a man. What does she do? She's a married lady, but look at the next verse. She engages in fornication, and because she's not a virgin, she's married. She then, after following that, washes herself, takes a shower, takes a bath, and then comes out and she says, I've done nothing wrong. And because she's not a virgin, therefore, there's no trace of her fornication. Openly. So we have an open example in Proverbs 30, unambiguous, that where the word alma is used to describe someone who's clearly not a virgin. That's the whole point of it. So this is all a complete lie. What's the takeaway, my friends? Always challenge every point. Look it up for yourself. Thank you.
Guys, hit that like button, subscribe to the YouTube channel, go to Rabbi Singer's channel as well, and also don't forget his 2-volume book set, Let's Get Biblicals, Volume 1 and 2. The audio files are available, but the CDs are not, but they're available on his website.
The MP3. Let me say, I want to just one other thing
Go
for
ahead.
you guys. Listen carefully. Pay no attention to that man. No, listen to me. It's so important. If you believe in the work that William is doing, that we're doing here, whenever you watch any of our videos, please like it and please share it. It's very important because it really affects the algorithm so that our videos are spread around. So really it's very, very important that whenever you see a video of William, a video of mine, it's very important to like it. I hope we like it.
Yeah.
But if you do, don't just pass it. Just make sure you like it and make sure that you subscribe to channels because it really has a very big impact on spreading Torah throughout the world. It's very, very important. You should really go through our videos and make sure that those videos that you haven't liked yet, you do like them. It really has a very, very big impact on spreading this message. Anyway, shalom.
Yeah. And commenting on them also helps generate views as well, so it kind of refreshes them on the system. So, Rabbi, thank you. Great show, and we'll see you, Hashem willing, same time, same place next week. Shalom, everyone. Bye.
If you enjoy this channel and the content, and it has changed your life, or perhaps the life of a loved one or a close friend, would you please consider supporting this work? You can click this link and it'll take you directly to my website with the donate button. Or there's a Patreon link and a mailing address for snail mail if you would prefer. If you do donate, please do me a favor and leave me a phone number where I can contact you and thank you properly. I hope you all have a wonderful 2025. Shalom.